Good evening, everyone. So, let me introduce myself. First of all, it is great to have you, very active on the group chat. So, geography नहीं अभी world history पे focus करते हैं. I am going to take world history for you. Let me introduce myself. I am Himanshu Khatri, and I am going to take your world history. A brief background about myself. Well, I also became part of the UPSC journey, as all of you have just begun, but my journey, it began around the time period of 2011. I gave 3 attempts. In the first attempt, I cleared my prelims. In the second attempt, I cleared my mains. And in the third attempt, I also cleared the interview. Right? And after clearing the interview, I got into Indian Revenue Services, Customs and GST. I served there for a period of 5 years, 5 odd years. Then life is a sort of like, a journey where you take decisions, if you want to take decisions. कभी-कभी आप अपने ड्रीम को फॉलो करते हो या कभी-कभी आपको थोड़ा सा लाइफ में लेट पता चलता है that what you actually want from your life. So I was always a very, very average student in the school. Okay, so this is like just take 5 minutes of you. So those of you, why I'm telling you this? I'm telling you this if there are students among you who are low on confidence, if there are students among you who feel that they are not having a good educational background, they were never a great student in their school years or in their college years. So that's why I'm telling you. And the crux of that story is that if I can clear UPSC, then obviously you can also clear UPSC. So I was a very average student throughout my school life, but around the time period of 9th and 10th class, I decided that I need to become a little serious. So complete 180-degree change happened, and then I started preparing for IIT. No one expected that I would clear IIT, and I was a slow learner, but ultimately somehow I was able to clear IIT in my first attempt. Everyone was surprised, including my family members, my teachers, everyone was surprised, right? Some even said कि तुक्के से हो गया इसका, मतलब that kind of confidence was there on my end of performance that people said that कि इसका तुक्के से हो गया. Right, anyways, when I got into IIT, after that, sort of again I thought कि यार मेहनत तो इतनी करनी थी बस लाइफ में और मेहनत खत्म है. So I enjoyed my college life. In some of the subjects I did very well, but overall, in many of the subjects I did not well. So I became a 5 point someone. ठीक है, तो कोई नहीं, चलो फिर जॉब लग गई तो फिर I worked there for 1.5 years, 2 years. दोबारा वो फेज आ गया कि यार अब तो लाइफ में दोबारा सीरियस होने का टाइम है. So there I got very good feedbacks and very good evaluations. I was among the top 2-3 employees of the company. But then I was like, यार ये तो मेरे को नहीं चाहिए. My other friends etc. in the company, they were working towards IM or ISB or something like that, XLRI. So I thought कि नहीं, मेरे को कुछ अलग करना है, मेरे को rat race से बाहर निकलना है. In the rat race I entered into IT और मेरे को बाहर निकलना है. So then I joined UPSC. I got inspired by some of the seniors, started preparing for UPSC. When I began my preparation for UPSC, so my initial doubts were very, very basic. I did not know what is the meaning of GDP. I did not know what is the meaning of what is the constitution. I had never seen read the constitution as such. I did not know what is the difference between a law and a rule. A lot of things I did not know. The journey began, but each year improvements happened, and ultimately I was able to clear the UPSC. So the point is that and once I cleared the UPSC, then it was established कि ठीक है मेहनत से कर सकता है लड़का. The point here is that those of you who feel a little low, do not feel low. आप मेहनत से, hard work से, you can clear anything. You can clear this exam, right? Anyways, so उसके बाद मैं 5 साल नौकरी करी, फिर 5 साल नौकरी करी. There also I was one of the favorite kind of subordinate, right? So, but somehow after 5 years in the service, मुझे को feel नहीं आ रही थी, वो मजा नहीं आ रहा था. I left the service and I've been teaching on and off from the time period of around 2013 etc. में. So I thought कि ये मेरे को अच्छा लगता है और मैं ये करूँगा. लाइफ एक ही लाइफ मिलती है, तो let's work hard towards it. So that's a brief introduction about myself, right? So as we can develop a rapport. Right. Now let us come to world history. So I'll be taking a world history. We'll be completing the syllabus roughly in 18 to 20 classes. Right. I'll try to wrap it up earlier also. The syllabus that we'll be covering goes on something like this. So let us have an overview of the syllabus. So when we look at the syllabus, so the UPSC says that syllabus, it begins somewhere around the 18th century. But when we look at the details of the syllabus which have been provided, in the form of particular events, then we see that syllabus actually hints more at somewhere middle of the 18th century. Then we go to modern Indian history. There also we see that it is mentioned that syllabus of modern Indian history, it also begins around the time of 1750s, that is middle of 18th century. Right. So therefore, on that basis, what we begin is we take an event before the first event mentioned by the UPSC. The first event mentioned by the UPSC is American Revolution. So what we begin is the 7-year war. Right. So we will talk about it later on. But your 7-year war, it took place from 1754 to 1763. This will be the topic that we will be covering in today's class. We will begin with this. Now this 7-year war, it happened majorly between France and Britain. And this is a very, very important event because Winston Churchill once said that this 7-year war was the first world war, the true first world war. Because otherwise the World War I, it took place around the time period of 1914. So Winston Churchill said कि असलियत में पहली वर्ल्ड वॉर ये थी. And what is the importance of this 7-year war? After this 7-year war, it was established that now Britain is the #1 power. This war, it ended the rivalry between Britain and France, and it resulted in catapulting or matlab making Britain the #1 power in the world around the time of middle of 18th century. Right? So if you look at the year 1754 to 63, तो अगर आपने modern Indian history पढ़ा है, just in case, let me आप response कर सकते हैं. Have you read modern Indian history, or are your classes of modern Indian history done? Sombir, if you can tell me. Rehan, Ayush, Priya, are your modern Indian history classes done, or okay? ठीक है, कोई issue नहीं. Later on, when you do your modern Indian history, thereon you will see that your Battle of Plassey, it happened around the time period of 1757, and your Battle of Wandiwash, it took place around the time period of 1760. Right? So therefore, when we are doing that, so therefore at that point of time, what we are having is the very same years. So जब इंडिया में ब्रिटेन का पावर बढ़ रहा था, तब पूरे वर्ल्ड में भी ब्रिटेन का पावर बढ़ रहा था. So that is the linkage which is there between your Indian history, modern Indian history, and your modern Indian history and your world history. Right? So that is there. So after this 7-year war, Britain is established as the #1 power. After this, we come across American Revolution. Right? So American Revolution 1765 to 83. As a result of this American Revolution, what we have is, that your As a result of this American Revolution, what we have seen is that your US, that is the United States of America, it comes into picture, it takes birth, right? And it results in erosion of power of Britain, if not in the world, but at least in the American continent, right? So therefore, birth of America takes place. Polity-wise also, this event is very, very important, because in this event, for the first time, a republic was established in the world. For the first time, a written constitution was brought into practice, right? So therefore, this American Revolution, now America, it is somewhat, so you know that this is your Atlantic Ocean, and here it is your Europe, and here it is your America. So therefore, what we can say is that polity-wise, this was a landmark event in the history, and these ideas of democracy, these ideas of republicanism, they traveled across the two continents, that is across the Atlantic Ocean. And then immediately after this, what we see is that around the time period of 1789, your French Revolution takes place. French Revolution takes place, and now the ideas of democracy, ideas of republicanism, they have entered the domain of Europe. And this triggers a huge amount of, changes on the European continent, right? After this, war begins between France and the rest of the European countries, and the whole of Europe, it is engulfed in those wars until the final demise of Napoleon in 1815, right? So we will take a look at French Revolutionary Wars. plus Napoleonic Wars. Right? So we'll take a look at this, and this will cover the period till your 1815. So therefore, from this time period of 1789 till 1815, we again see a challenge to the British authority by the French, but again the Britishers, they are able to win this challenge, right? And so therefore this is also topic of our discussion in the syllabus. We will cover this. Now ये 1815 तक आ गए. Simultaneously some other things were taking place. So if this is the political side of things, something was also happening in the economic side of things. And on the economic side of things, what was taking place was, your industrial revolution. And industrial revolution, it happened where? Not in the whole world, it happened in Britain. And it began from 1750 onwards, and it will continue till your 1850s. So what do we see? Here we mentioned that Britain is becoming powerful politically all across the world. But simultaneously what we are seeing, that in its economy also some big changes were taking place from the very same period of time, that is 1750 onwards. So therefore always remember that the strength of any country, we will come to sources, Vivek. The strength of any country, it depends on its economy. You will be able to have a good army, you will be able to dominate your region, you will be able to dominate the world if your economy is robust. And this industrial revolution, it revolutionized the economy of Britain. And when the economic power of Britain began, we see that the political power of the British, it is also increasing. So that is the link between economics and politics, and it is very, very important thing, right? थोड़ा सा zoom in कर दीजिए, वो कह रहे हैं थोड़ा सा छोटा दिख रहा है, थोड़ा सा zoom in कर दीजिए. Right. So we will be covering this particular topic of industrial revolution. This is just the syllabus. You don't have to note this down if you want to note this down, right? I'll write bigger, don't worry. Right. So this industrial, so we will study about this industrial revolution. We will study the impact of industrial revolution on Britain, and we will study the impact of industrial revolution on the rest of the world, right? So therefore we will take a look at this. Simultaneously in Britain, it happened from 1750 to 1850, and later on we see that it is in the rest of the world. It happened your 1870 onwards. So usually this is mentioned as the first industrial revolution, and this is mentioned as the second industrial revolution. And here we see countries like US, countries like Germany, countries like France, countries like Japan, they industrialize. Right? And now what we see is that around the time period of 1750, there was only one industrialized nation. It took 100 years to properly industrialize, but in this era of 1750 to 1850, there was only one properly industrialized nation in the world, and that was Britain. And that was dominating the world politics also. But after 1870, we see there was emergence of even more industrialized nations in the world, and those industrialized nations of the rest of the world, they were also now in the potential basket of dominating the world. Now they also wanted to reap the political benefits of this economic change, right? So therefore, as a result of it, what we see is that now gradually the conflicts, they will start developing, right? So before we move on to the conflict side, let us come back to the political side again. So French Revolutionary Wars and Napoleonic Wars, they happened in 1815, but after this also the spirit of republicanism, the spirit of democracy, it continues. And as a result, we see that there is a period of turmoil, period of social turmoil. That is, it is now the people of Europe who are demanding democracy, who are now trying to resist or trying to overthrow their monarchy and bring in democracy. So therefore, this French Revolution, it inspired the movement for democracy in the whole of Europe. And there is this period of social turmoil which is there from 1815 onwards till 1870. This period of turmoil, it continues. So we'll take a look at it, that what were this period of turmoil. Majorly 1830, it is an important year. In this year, the whole of Europe, the people of the whole of Europe, they came out on the street against their monarchs, against their kings, and what they wanted was democracy. You don't have to note whatever I'm speaking right now. It is just to provide you an index, which is ताकि index थोड़ा सा पढ़ के समझ में आए, right? So you do whatever I am speaking, you don't have to remember it. Whatever I am speaking, you do not have to write it, right? This is just the index. I am just trying to elaborate it. Okay. 1830 and 1848, they are the two important events. We will take a look at it, right? Then, apart from this, on the political side, एक और चीज हो रही थी, अगर यहीं से ही continue करें तो, right? So, in 1870, two important events they take place. That is unification of Germany and of Italy. What do you mean by unification of Germany and unification of Italy? The meaning of this is that earlier the Germany that we know today, वो पहले वैसा नहीं था. It was divided into hundreds of small kingdoms. So therefore all the German kingdoms, they got merged into a united Germany, and all the Italian kingdoms, they got merged into a kingdom of Italy, or that is a unified Italy. So therefore we will trace this unification of Germany, unification of Italy. We will try to see the parallels, the differences between them, right? Now as a result, what happens is there is rise of Germany, there is rise of Italy, and also we know that 1870 onwards these nations, US, Germany, France, Japan, etc., Italy included, right, all of them they become industrialized. Now later on we will see that industrialization क्या है, because simple है. Industrialization, it basically means factory mode of production. Instead of making goods by your hand, you will be utilizing machines to produce goods, right? So therefore the world shifted towards factory mode of production after the industrial revolution. Now what do factories require? The factories, they require raw material, right? And they convert the raw material into finished goods, and after that this particular finished good, it needs to be sold in a market. This market can be a domestic market, or it can be an export market, that is you export the goods produced by your factory to the rest of the world. Like today China is, the whole world is an export market for China. China is dominating the rest of the world's market. The goods which are produced in the factories of China, they are exported from China and they are sold to the people of the rest of the world. That means the rest of the world is an export market for China. India is an important export market for China. US is also an important export market for China. So therefore, factories, they utilize raw material, convert that raw material into finished goods, and those finished goods, they are fulfilling the requirements or the demand in the domestic market and also the demand of the export market, right? What do you mean by this is, now factories, now पहले भी ऐसा ही होता था, जब हाथ से काम होता था तब भी तो यही होता था. You always convert raw material into finished goods and then you sell it in the market. So अब different क्या है? अब different है the speed of production. The rate at which the factories, they can consume the raw material, it has ballooned and exploded like anything because of the industrialization. And therefore the rate at which the finished goods are produced, it has zoomed up like anything because of the industrialization. As a result, what happens? Now these industrialized nations, they need raw material very rapidly. उनकी भूख बहुत बढ़ गई है. They are like, they want to eat raw material like anything. And they are, putting out the finished goods at a very rapid pace. Now domestic market, it is saturated, for example. Still more goods are being produced. So therefore now the factory, they are searching for export market, कि हमको कोई export market दो या कोई export market दो. And now it is not just one nation, Britain, which is doing this. It is other nations also which are there in this race. For what? First of all, they want sources of raw material. कि हमको कहां से सस्ता कोल मिल जाएगा, कहां से सस्ता आयरन मिल जाएगा, कहां से हमको सस्ता बाकी टाइप का रॉ मटेरियल मिल जाएगा, रबर मिल जाएगा. And after they have got that, then they also want an export market. कि इसको बेचे कहां? अपनी कंट्री में तो जितना बिकना था बिक गया, आप कहीं और भी तो बेचना है. So therefore industrialization ने ये चीज को स्पीड अप किया. किसको? The production, the rate of consumption of the raw material and the rate of production of the finished goods. And this created a huge amount of demand for new sources of raw material and new export markets. And how do you get a source of raw material, especially cheap raw material, right? And an export market? By doing colonization. That is by sending your army to Africa, by sending your army to China and controlling those areas and then forcing them to give their raw material at a very cheap price to you, and also forcing them to buy your products, you know, in some kind of an arrangement. So therefore what we see is colonialism, which means that foreigners, they are coming to a particular area and then they are dominating these people. Colonialism existed even before 1870, but after 1870 the rate of colonialism increased many fold. So therefore what we see is that all of these events, they are resulting in what? They are resulting in a rapid increase in colonialism. And this is in the form of a rapid increase in colonialism. And this is represented by two issues which we will be discussing. First is your scramble for Africa. What do you mean by the word scramble? Scramble means, you know, people are running to get a piece of Africa. Right? They are fighting, they are scrambling कि यार मेरे को ये अफ्रीका मिल जाए, मेरे को अफ्रीका का ये पार्ट मिल जाए, आपस में लड़ाई हो रही है. Right? So therefore scramble for Africa. And then second part we also discuss colonialism in China. Right? So this scramble for Africa, the whole of Africa was scrambled by 1914. So this story, it begins from 1870 and it sort of ends by 1914, because by the time of World War I, 1914, the whole of Africa has been captured by these European powers. And the colonialism in China, it begins in 1840, and again by the time period of 1940s we see, so 1840 to 1949 तक का period, जिसको चाइना आज के टाइम पे बोलता है century of humiliation. And Chinese say that we are taking the revenge from the world of this century of humiliation. They tell their subjects कि कभी भी century of humiliation को मत भूलना. These were the only 100 years in the history of China where China was dominated by the foreigners. Otherwise, China has always been the #1 world economy, followed by India. India and China, they have dominated the whole world throughout history, except for a period of 300 odd years, that is from 1750 or 1650 till your 1950 कह सकते हैं, ठीक है? So therefore only this 300 years, they are a small blip in the history of India and China. Otherwise they have dominated the whole world economically like anything. For example, around the time period of 1650, India was even able to take over China, becoming the #1 economy of the world, right? So therefore the Chinese, they do not want to forget the century of humiliation. तो ये भी एक हमारा टॉपिक होगा, और ये इसलिए भी इंपॉर्टेंट है बिकॉज इफ यू वांट टू बी अ फॉरेन सर्विसेज ऑफिसर और अदरवाइज ऑल्सो, वी शुड ऑलवेज बी मच अवेयर, मोर अवेयर अबाउट आवर नेबरहुड. So therefore China, it becomes important, right? So therefore this part we discuss. After this what comes? After this comes your, so once your colonialism etc., all of this fighting, they are fighting for colonies, they are fighting for getting areas under their control. All of these things, they will result in what? They will result in World War I. (1914 to 1918). So we'll take a look at the reasons for the World War I. We will take a look at the impact of the World War I. That how did the world change after the World War I, right? So we'll take a look at it. So all of these aspects we'll be discussing. That is, we'll be discussing the reasons, we'll be discussing the impact. After the World War I comes what? There is a small period of 1919 till 1939, a period of 20 odd years. And look, ऐसा क्या हुआ कि 20 साल के अंदर एक और वर्ल्ड वॉर? एक तो हमारा सिलेबस बढ़ा दिया यूपीएससी का, और ऊपर से इतनी तबाही हो गई. The world became a nuclear world. What happened in these 20 years that there is a world war again? Just मतलब ये तो कभी भी नहीं हुआ कि 20 साल के अंदर ही दोबारा एक वर्ल्ड वॉर. That means the World War I was not able to resolve these conflicts. तभी तो World War II इतना जल्दी हुआ. So therefore we will, when we discuss the impact of the World War I, that how this particular war, it sowed the seeds of the World War II. Yes, economic depression also we'll take a look at. So उसी के अंदर आ जाता है जिसको बोलते हैं हम इंटर वॉर पीरियड. And this interwar period is from 1919 till your 1939. And in this interwar period, certain important things takes place. First of all, in this interwar period there is establishment of USSR. So therefore USSR as a first communist country comes into picture. Right? It is a very, very important event. We will take a look at it. Second aspect that takes place in this year is that is your Great Depression. Of 1929 takes place. So we'll have a look at the Great Depression of 1929. And third aspect that we see is that there is rise of fascism. In 1922, there is Mussolini, and then in 1933 there is Hitler. So why did they come to power? Who was responsible for them coming to power, and why they were successful? Hitler was highly successful. By the time period of 1939, he had declared Germany as having zero unemployment. He was a great success. So therefore we will take a look at fascism, we will take a look at Mussolini, we will take a look at Hitler. When we discuss USSR, we will take a look at communism, Marxism, etc. These kind of things will take place, right? So therefore, first of all, we will look at the political events related to USSR, and then we will also take a look at communism, Marxism, etc., etc. Right? And when we discuss it, then we will also be discussing socialism in China. So China we will be covering in a very good manner. So we will be communism in USSR, we will be taking a look at. In China, we will be taking a look at. Right? So therefore we will see that how these things they are progressing. Right? In China it takes place from 1949 till your 89. This period we will be covering. In USSR we will be covering from the period of 1917 till your 1991 when your, so all of these things we will be covering when the USSR it is destroyed. So ये हमारे syllabus का part हुआ, and after this it is culminating in the form of World War II. So we will take a look at the reasons for the World War II, some important events and the impact of the World War II. After ending the World War II is from 1939 to 1945. So after covering the World War II, now what happens? A, decolonization takes place. India, for example, became independent in 1947. Africa decolonization majorly begins from 1957 onwards. So we'll take a look at decolonization. And did political freedom really bring, economic freedom? Did it really bring real freedom to the people? Did the life of these people change drastically in a very positive manner after decolonization? We'll take a look at it. Second aspect which happens after the World War II is that in the World War I, the Europeans fought. In the World War II, the Europeans fought. But after the World War II, what we see is rise in unity. So therefore, we take a look at the European Union, EU. Right? Simultaneously, when European Union was marching towards unity, simultaneously your Cold War was also marching towards more and more aggressive stance. So we'll take a look at European Union, we will take a look at the Cold War. Right? And the Cold War, it began from 1945 बोल सकते हैं, 47 भी बोल सकते हैं, right, till your 1991 when your USSR got disintegrated. So the story of the disintegration of the USSR, the story of the Cold War, and this Cold War we will take a look at, in Europe and Cold War outside of Europe. So here we will come across multiple things, multiple wars, etc., etc. We will take a look at it, right? So therefore, and when we do this, our syllabus it will end. Right? There are other small topics in between all of it. For example, we will be discussing Napoleon also, right? So broadly, this forms the syllabus of the UPSC. That is from the time period of 1750s till the time period of this particular aspect. Right? So therefore, these are the things that we will be discussing. Now, second aspect is the sources. Okay, so second aspect is the sources. पहले तो ये बताओ, ये आपको इंडेक्स कैसा लगा? ऐसा इंडेक्स आपने देखा है कभी? थोड़ा सा इलैबोरेटेड इंडेक्स है, अंडरस्टैंडिंग के साथ वाला इंडेक्स है. ठीक है, जितना बड़ा है, थोड़ा सा एक माइंड मैप बना आपका रिगार्डिंग वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री. Apart from this, now let us come to the sources. Now, what are the sources for this? Now, in the UPSC, in the recent years, very few questions have been asked from the world history. That is why I think, yes, Arab-Israel conflict, etc. we will also take a look at. As part of this decolonization, we will also take a look at Arab-Israel conflict. We will also take a look at Gulf War, etc., etc. Okay, great. Right. So therefore, now let us look at the sources. Now, in the recent years, very few this thing has come. Very few questions have come from the world history. But UPSC, it has a knack for surprising the students. ये मैं कैसे बता रहा हूँ? क्योंकि मैं वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री पढ़ा रहा हूँ इसलिए? ऐसा नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. I do not expect that in the next year suddenly there will be a lot of questions from world history. वैसा मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ. But हाँ, एक personal experience है. When I started my preparation for the UPSC, तो at that point of time, two subjects were top subjects: psychology and pub ed. And in my first and second attempt, we gave the exam by having two optionals. My third attempt was of the present scheme of things, but उस टाइम पे दो ऑप्शन थे, पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, साइकोलॉजी, एंड लगातार जो है वहां से रैंक 1 आ रहे थे. राइट नाउ व्हाट डिड द यूपीएससी डू इन 2011 एंड इन 2012 एंड देन इन 2013? इट brought down the optionals of public administration and psychology like anything. It murdered it. Right? Literally murdered it. Right? So similarly, the subjects which were out of focus, they were brought more in focus. Suddenly people started getting more marks in sociology, etc. So in the recent years, you see that PSIR, sociology, they have emerged as the favorite subjects of the students. I'm pretty sure that among you also, a lot of students, they will be having sociology. A lot of students, they will be having PSIR, etc. ये आजकल के फेवरेट चल रहे हैं. इनका कभी भी मर्डर हो सकता है. ठीक है, यूपीएससी ऐसा करता है. अगर आपको विश्वास नहीं है तो जस्ट गो एंड सर्च 2011 2000, आउट ऑफ योर 180, द टॉपर्स दे आर गेटिंग 40 मार्क्स इन दैट 2012 or 2011 exam, 2012 I think. So therefore UPSC करता रहता है ऐसे, इसलिए you should not take any subject lightly. दूसरा एक चीज है, by having your world history you will be sort of able to have a better understanding of modern Indian history, because I'll try to link the both जहां पे भी possible होगा. Third aspect is, if your optional is PSIR, or if your optional is history, or just in case you are interested in Indian foreign services, or like in the current affairs you read about international relations, if you do your world history in a decent way, then I promise you it will be much more comfortable for you to read the articles on the international affairs. That's my promise to you. ठीक है, if you remain regular in the class and you simply understand, even if you simply listen, then आपका जो IR है वो improve होगा, right? Because world history से ही foundation मिलता है उसका, and lot of things you will be able to understand in a decent way. Third aspect आ जाए sources का. तो क्योंकि अब इतने सारे questions आ नहीं रहे हैं, so मैं अपने students का burden क्यों बढ़ाऊं? So therefore the notes of the Vision IAS which are there with you of the world history, you refer only to them, refer to them along with the classes. If you are able to understand the classes and you are able to understand those notes, then have faith that those notes are pretty comprehensive, right? They have been made from the sources, multiple sources, from the NCERT, from your Noble Lowey, from your Jain and Mathur. Multiple sources have been consulted, and internet has also been consulted, and internet also ऐसे नहीं कि कोरा पे रेफर कर लिया, but yes, proper documents etc. They have been consulted, and after that those notes have been prepared, and they are pretty comprehensive. अगर आप सिर्फ उनको कर लेते हो अच्छे से, so वो हो जाएगा. ठीक है. What is fascism? We'll discuss that. Fascism, Nazism, they are the same. Basically, it means a right-wing dictatorial regime whereby there is focus on extreme nationalism, और लोगों को बोला जाता है that you need to focus on extreme nationalism, and we are the caretakers of the nationalism, and as part of fascism there is lack of democracy. The democracy, it is killed, and there is establishment of dictatorial regime under one important leader. Yes, so vision material and the class notes, they are enough, right? Future of PSIR, अब ये future तो कोई predict नहीं कर सकता, but point ये है कि if for a period of let's say 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, if a subject has run very well, तो मतलब हो सकता है, because UPSC itself maintains a proper data that from which particular optional how much percentage of successful candidates are coming, and if from any particular optional or from any particular background more number of students are coming, then they do scaling or they try to bring parity because they want to maintain. ठीक है. Renaissance of Italy, it goes back how are engineering options since you yourself are engineering options? Yeah, if you love the subject of engineering, then go for it. You will get very good marks. But in my case, as I did not like civil engineering as such, so therefore I went with the traditional thing. Also, जो मेरे mentor थे उस time पे, he was an IAS officer, got rank 51. उनको मैथ्स और फिजिक्स से किया था, तो ही एडवाइस किया इतनी मेहनत मैं मैथ्स और फिजिक्स में करी, इतनी अगर मैं ऑप्शन में कर लेता तो मेरा पहले सिलेक्शन हो जाता, तो इसलिए मैंने वो चूज कर लिया. बट द पॉइंट इज यू शुड ऑलवेज चूज अ सब्जेक्ट जहां पे आपका इंटरेस्ट है. ठीक है, तो अगर आपको इंजीनियरिंग बहुत अच्छा आपको लगता है तो सबसे अर्जुन देव मटेरियल फॉर वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री इज गुड. हाँ, तो आचार्य अर्जुन देव का मटेरियल से भी है इंस्पायर्ड. सो आचार्य अर्जुन देव मटेरियल प्लस नॉर्मल लोवे प्लस योर, व्हेन आई मेंशन एनसीईआरटी, इट इज द ओल्ड एनसीईआरटी व्हिच इज रिटन बाय आचार्य अर्जुन देव. सो जितने भी आपके टॉप के मटेरियल्स हैं उन सबको इंक्लूड करके इस पे किया गया. ठीक है, लेट अस रिस्ट्रिक्ट आवरसेल्व्स टू वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री राइट नाउ. भी बहुत सारे आ रहे हैं. वही सब्जेक्ट सबसे अच्छा है जो आपको समझ में आए. ठीक है, बस इतना है निष्कर्ष. और बाकी किसी की बातों में मत आओ. कोई कह रहा है कि वो सब्जेक्ट अच्छा है, वो सब्जेक्ट अच्छा है, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. द सब्जेक्ट विच यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड और जिसमें आपका इंटरेस्ट बने. जब आप 12 घंटे पढ़े तो आपकी कमर में दर्द हो रहा है पर वो अच्छा लगे, बेरेबल हो, वो सब्जेक्ट सबसे अच्छा होता है. ठीक है, सो सोर्सेज में मैं आपको यही कहूंगा दैट इफ यू रेफर टू क्लास नोट्स, इफ यू रेफर टू द पीपीटी विच विल बी प्रोवाइडिंग यू, द हैंड रिटन नोट्स विच विल बी प्रोवाइडिंग यू, द डिक्टेशन एटसेट्रा विच विल बी प्रोवाइडिंग यू, एंड इफ यू रेफर टू योर विजन आईएएस नोट्स, दोज आर इनफ. इफ यू do not understand from them, then you can refer to the old NCERT by Acharya Arjun Dev. You can refer to normal Lowe, right? अभी इन दो पे आप फोकस कर लो तो वो बहुत है. ठीक है, तो that much is good enough, right? So if you want to note this down, अच्छा, then I'll give you 2-3 minutes. अब अपना रेपो भी एस्टैब्लिश करते हैं. हमारा क्या रेपो है? I will be drawing a lot of flow charts on the whiteboard, and those flow charts they will be in legible capital letters. जैसे ये है, राइट? इट इज सॉर्ट ऑफ एन इंडेक्स, तो इलैबोरेशन नहीं है, वहां पे इलैबोरेशन होगा. Those flowcharts they will assist you in revising world history in a very quick manner when you are near to the exams. At times I'll also be providing you dictation, right? At times I will be providing you with handwritten notes also, जहां पे लग रहा है कि टाइम को मैनेज करना है और समझा दिया. The PPTs they will also be available to you wherever they are discussed in the class. They will be made available to you. So therefore the structure that we are going to follow is, if I am writing anything on the board, then you do not have to write it simultaneously. ठीक, थोड़ा सा zoom out कर लो कैमरा को, ठीक है, थोड़ा zoom out कर लो. If I'm writing anything on the board, you do not have to write that simultaneously. Every time I fill this board, after that I'll be giving you 2 minutes or 3 minutes or even 5 minutes depending on the content which is there on the board. So you do not have to be anxious that I will delete this board immediately. वैसा नहीं है. I will be giving you time. Those of you who want to take a screenshot, they can take a screenshot, but the best way is that you write it on your own, right? So इस तरीके से रहेगा हमारा जो है, तो टाइम दिया जाएगा. आपको कोई भी डाउट है, ठीक है, you can ask through the batch coordinator, because this particular window which is there, बहुत सारे मैसेज आ जाते हैं और उसमें पता नहीं चलता है, राइट? सो बैच कोऑर्डिनेटर्स रोल इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ही इज अ वेरी एसेंशियल पार्ट ऑफ द टीम. शी एंड ही, ठीक है, जो भी आएंगे हो सकता है डिफरेंट बैच कोऑर्डिनेटर्स हो. सो दे विल बी वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ दिस. दे आर वेरी वेरी लर्नेड. दे हैव गिवन mains etc. They are pretty learned. So therefore you ask questions through them. The questions which they will be able to answer, they will answer. The questions which they feel merit the time of all the hundreds of students, so therefore they will be forwarded on the scheme, right? So Saloni, right now, Saloni, Ayushiba, right now you focus only on the Vision IAS notes. If after, give me time period of 5 classes, 5 or 6 classes, आप मुझे 5 से 6 क्लासेस तो दे सकते हैं उधार. आप मेरे को सिर्फ 5 से 6 क्लासेस दीजिए उधार, और उसके साथ में आप कहते हैं विजन आईएएस के नोट्स पढ़िए और क्लास अटेंड करिए. एंड आफ्टर दैट ऑल्सो इफ यू फील दैट वी नीड मोर इलैबोरेशन और वी नीड मोर रेफरेंस टू द सोर्सेज, देन यू कैन अगेन पॉइंट इट आउट. आई विल अगेन मेंशन इट एंड देन यू कैन नोट दिस डाउन. ठीक है, सो इफ स्क्रीनशॉट इज नॉट अलाउड तो अच्छी बात है, आप हाथ से लिखिए. ठीक है, जितना लिखेंगे उतना ज्यादा अच्छे से समझ में आएगा. ठीक है, आप बस मेरे को 5 से 6 क्लासेस का आप मेरे को समय दें. ठीक है, क्योंकि सब्जेक्ट नया है, अभी स्टार्ट हो रहा है. गिव मी 5 to 6 क्लासेस right? After that, if you feel that you need to refer to something else, maybe in the first 5-6 classes, if you are getting bored, still try to be a little regular. And after 5 to 6 classes, decide that whether you want to bunk the class or whether you want to attend the class regularly, and is it enough for you? ठीक है, मेरे को 5-6 क्लासेस इतना दे सकते हैं ना, मेरे को बस इतना चाहिए. ठीक है. So now I will give you 2-3 minutes. Role of world history in the UPSC. So as I told you, direct questions last year तो एक भी question नहीं आया, right? उससे पहले usually 1 to 2 questions have come. Only the last year was an abruption, right? So that is the direct relevance. The indirect relevance is, and that the students who attend all the classes, they will be able to, definitely see the relevance, that how world history it is relevant to the current affairs, international relations and modern Indian history, right? So इसको आप note कर लीजिए. I'll give you 3 minutes for this too, right? So this is like your index you should be discussing. Astha, this is a lecture plan. These are the different topics we shall be discussing. So today is the first lecture, so we'll be discussing 7-year war. Once we do that, we'll come across American Revolution. Overall, I estimate that around the time period of 18 to 20 classes, और भी पहले करने की कोशिश करेंगे, we'll be able to complete the class. But हाँ, इतना है, एक चीज, one thing I would like to say, the syllabus is there. So therefore, my effort here will be to complete the syllabus, right? So if UPSC is asking less questions from world history since a couple of years, so I'll do justice to the syllabus. So that's why approximately 18 classes के आसपास लगेगा, 20 classes के आसपास लगेगा. So मैं वो नहीं करने वाला हूँ कि वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री से क्वेश्चंस नहीं आ रहे हैं तो सिर्फ 5 क्लासेस में आपका मैं कंप्लीट कर दूं, ठीक है? तो क्योंकि वो जस्टिस नहीं होगा, राइट? सो सिलेबस से जस्टिस होगा, सो दैट जस्ट इन केस इफ नेक्स्ट ईयर और कुछ आता है क्वेश्चन, देन कम से कम आप ये ना बोले दैट विजन आईएएस ने कराया था बट क्या कराया, जल्दी जल्दी रैप अप कर दिया, राइट? सो राइट नाउ यू माइट बी रिलक्टेंट टू कि हम इतना टाइम दें वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री को लेटर ऑन. सो देयरफॉर सिलेबस को जस्टिस दिया जाएगा. सो दैट इज द प्रीलिम्स में नहीं आता है वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री. वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री कम्स इन मेंस ओनली. सबसे पहले लेफ्ट पे फोकस कर दीजिए. Communism in China 1949 till 1989. (1949 to 1989). Yes, Mohit, I'll be covering it in full. I'll not be ditching you. Public administration is doing fine. कोई problem नहीं. I hope it is fine now. पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन बढ़िया ऑप्शन है यार, बाद में भी काम आता है, एथिक्स में भी काम आता है. एंथ्रोलॉजी इट हेल्प्स यू इन द सोसाइटी पार्ट ऑल्सो, एंथ्रो भी अच्छा ऑप्शन है. केमिस्ट्री एज एन ऑप्शन यार वही है, केमिस्ट्री है, इट्स अ साइंस सब्जेक्ट, सो आई मीन फाइटर रहेगा करना, बट अगर आपको अच्छा लगता है केमिस्ट्री तो डेफिनेटली देखना होगा कोचिंग वगैरह कहाँ मिलती है उसकी. सारे ऑप्शंस का रेलेवेंस है, लॉ भी बढ़िया है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है उसमें. बाद में कभी क्लास में आई शेयर, यू कैन नेक्स्ट क्लास में कभी मैं आपसे एक डॉक्यूमेंट शेयर करूंगा, वो उसमें कहते हैं, ये दिया हुआ है कि हाउ मेनी स्टूडेंट्स हैव क्वालिफाइड फ्रॉम विच पर्टिकुलर ऑप्शन. साइकोलॉजी बढ़िया ऑप्शन है यार, इंटरेस्टिंग ऑप्शन है. सोशलॉजी बहुत फेमस चल रहा है, बढ़िया ऑप्शन है. हिंदी लिटरेचर थोड़ा निशे है, ठीक है. अब मैं बोल के दिखा देता हूं आपको जो, हाँ वेट, हाँ तो कुछ नहीं, कम्युनिज्म इन चाइना, बस 2 ईयर लिखे हुए, 1917 टू 1991, 1949 टू 89, बस इतना ही लिखा हुआ. फाइट रहती है, मतलब प्रॉब्लम रहती है ऑप्शन में, मतलब थोड़ा सा निशे एरिया है. सो इफ यू आर अ लॉ स्टूडेंट देन हाफ ऑफ योर सिलेबस, तो हाफ ऑफ योर प्रिपरेशन इज ऑलरेडी डन. ठीक है, आई होप लिख लिया होगा आपने. सी ऑल दी ऑप्शनल्स दे आर गुड इफ यू आर गुड इन देम, मतलब इफ यू फाइंड दैट ऑप्शनल इंटरेस्टिंग, ऑल दी ऑप्शंस आर गुड. कोई इसमें ऐसा थोड़ी कि एंथ्रोपोलॉजी से किसी का सिलेक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, एग्रीकल्चर से किसी का सिलेक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, बट द पॉइंट इज दैट व्हाट यू गो अहेड एंड व्हाट यू राइट इन द एग्जाम, सो दैट वुड डिपेंड ऑन योर इंटरेस्ट लेवल्स. There are certain famous options like sociology, public administration, etc., जिनका कोचिंग आसानी से उपलब्ध है. So, you know, in that sense, those options, their preparation becomes a little easy. But if you go for certain niche options, the limited coaching avenues may be available from them. तो वो बस आपको देखना पड़ेगा, but still go for that option which you feel, you know, that you have an interest in. Okay. Now let us begin with our syllabus proper, right? So now we are going to take a look at, आप PPT पे उधर focus कर दीजिए. Now we are going to take a look at the 7-year war of 1754 to 63. So this is a 7-year war, 1754 to 63, right? So I'll show you certain maps so that we are able to get a sense कि कहां पे उस टाइम पे क्या था. So this is the map of, आप इस पे कर दीजिए. This is the map of Europe. It will come on your screen. Yeah. So this is the map of Europe, which was there around the time period of 1750s. So look at the important countries. France is here. Great Britain, it is here. Then there are certain these areas are there which you might not be pretty aware about, because this is the map of that particular era. For example, मैं अपनी finger से point करूंगा. This is the Holy Roman Empire. What is this Holy Roman Empire? This is the modern day Germany. Okay, so this is known as the Holy Roman Empire at that particular point of time. It was no empire as such. It was basically a very weak, centrally very weak kind of an empire, but a lot of multiple small kingdoms were there. Right? Then another important kingdom which we'll talk about later on is Prussia. So this Prussia, the blue part that you see, it is the present day, modern day Germany, and Prussia was the founder of the United Germany as we know it from 1870 onwards. तो यहाँ पे जैसे Prussia आ गया. Then this is your Poland, the modern day Poland, right? This Poland will not be there after a period of time, right? वो हम देखेंगे. This is Russia, that is USSR, ठीक है? So मोटा मोटी है. Apart from this, here it is your Austria and this is your Hungary. So when we discuss later on the World War I, that there will see Austria-Hungary Empire or only Austria at some point of time. This particular portion, it is known as the Balkan area, right? This is known as the Balkan area. This is the Ottoman Empire. So in 1750s, you see that the Ottoman Empire, it had all of these territories. This is the Black Sea, and above the Black Sea, you have this Russia. In the Black Sea, there is this Crimea. So very recently, around the time period 2014-15, your Crimea was taken over by Russia from Ukraine, right? So this is your Crimea. This is your Italy, divided into multiple kingdoms. Kingdom of two Sicilies or Sicily and Naples, papal states which were ruled by your Pope. ये मैं आपको बस एक I'm just telling you this particular map कि ये countries यहाँ पे हैं और कोई relevance नहीं. Just to make you a little familiar. Now, these are the 13 colonies of whom? Of Britain. So this is your North America, and in North America, on the right hand side of North America, you have these 13 colonies which are on the sea side, and these 13 colonies, they were established from 1637 to 1732. You do not have to remember the names of these colonies, you do not have to remember the years of these colonies, just pictorially I want to represent that when we refer to those 13 colonies, तो वो 13 colonies कौन सी थी, right? So these are the 13 colonies which were established by the British. These were 13 colonies which were established by the British in this time period. So therefore, when our syllabus sort of begins around the time period of 1750, what we see is that in the North America, there are the 13 British colonies on the right hand side or on the eastern side of North America. What about the rest of North America? So in the rest of North America, apart from the 13 colonies of the British, so here on the key, the pink point, it is written as Great Britain. So these are the 13 colonies of the British. Apart from this, on the left hand side, यहाँ पे एक mountains थे जिनको बोला जाता है Appalachian Mountains. Appalachian Mountains. And on the left hand side of the Appalachian Mountains, all of this area was under the French. Now the French, they were not living here, they were outside, but militarily they had been able to bring all of this area under their control, right? Then Spain was also present in North America. So this is your Florida, and Florida is very important because it is having access to the Atlantic Ocean, right? So this is your North America. Three powers are present: Britain in these 13 colonies, French, they are here, right? This particular area, it is under their control, and the Spanish. Another small and important aspect of this particular thing is that in these 13 colonies, the British people, they have crossed the Atlantic, and many of them, they have settled here, right? So actually white people, they are living here, the Europeans, they are living in these 13 colonies, whereas in this area, the French as such, they are not living here, they have not settled here. So ये area control में है फ्रांस के, but जो फ्रांसीसी लोग हैं, फ्रेंच लोग हैं, वो यहाँ रह नहीं रहे हैं. But in these 13 colonies, the British, they are living. They have settled here and they are living, right? So therefore, this is a scenario. Okay. Now let us come to the 7-year global war, and okay. Now let us come to the 7-year war. Till now, no student has subjugation or aboriginals was completely. Ask the questions to the batch coordinator, otherwise it will become very uncanny. I will deal with that question anyway. So 7-year war, 1754 to 63. Now 1754 to 63 is a period of 9 years. Then why it is known as a 7-year war? A very simple thing is there. For 2 years, there was no war, no actual fighting took place. War was declared in 1754. Actual war started from 1756 onwards. So that's why it is called as 7-year war, right? So otherwise, do not get confused. कोई problem नहीं है, इसको 1756 भी हम लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है? This is 1756 भी लिख सकते हैं. Do not get confused. So 7-year war. Now, if you look at the reasons, first of all, this particular war, it was fought between whom? This becomes the first question. The second question comes to the aspect why it was fought. That is the reasons for the war. And the third aspect which becomes important is what was the impact of this particular war. Okay, 1754 to 63 is a period of 9 years, but called 7-year war. Why, Tanvi? So as I've told you, the state of war was declared in 1754, but the actual, yes, I'll show you the PPT. The actual war, it was fought from 1756 to 63, so that is why it is known as a 7-year war. But the time period technically 1754 to 63, not important, right? The third aspect is the impact. What was the impact of this? Now, when we look at the 7-year war, it was majorly fought between 3 players. And who are these 3 players? On one side you had France and Spain, and on the other side you had the British. Other players were also involved. That is where it was fought. So this war, it was fought all over the world. That's why Winston Churchill was, video is lagging. No, not working. Okay. Okay, I'll wait. उनको बताएं. The batch coordinator may tell the students, yes, I'll repeat this. The batch coordinator may tell the students to refresh the video. Please refresh the video. Yes, I'll repeat. Okay. Now it is working fine. Great. Ashish, please refresh the video. Yes, I'll start freshly. Don't worry. Yes, I'll start freshly. Don't worry. Okay. Great. So therefore 7-year war, 1756 to 63, 3 aspects become important. The war was fought between whom? Second aspect is why it was fought, and the third aspect is the impact of the war, right? When you take a look at it was fought between whom, it was majorly fought between the French and the Spanish on the one side and the British on the other side. What do you mean by majorly fought between? The war, it took place in multiple areas. For example, the war majorly, or our concern, it is your North America. Plus the war also took place in Central America. Third, the war also took place in West Africa. Then the war also took place in India. And lastly, the war also took place in Europe. So because the war took place in Europe, right, so there were certain issues, certain territorial disputes in Europe. They are not important from the perspective of our syllabus, because the importance of the 7-year war is because of the American Revolution. It resulted in few things which resulted in the American Revolution. So our primary focus is going to be the North America, right? And these other areas are not going to be primary focus. In Europe, certain other allies of France and allies of Britain, they were fighting, like Prussia was fighting, Austria was fighting, Portuguese were fighting. So small other players were fighting, but they had no role in North America, West Africa and India. Here the major issue, the major issue here was between the British and the French, right? So that's why we say majorly between France and Spain on one side and Britain on another side. Spain obviously a second rate participant. The first participant is France, second is Britain. ठीक है, तो majorly लड़ाई France और Britain के बीच में हुई, right? So it is fought in multiple areas. What is the reason for the war? When we look at the reasons for the war, so what are the reasons for the war? The first reason for the war is the rivalry for colonies. In North America, the Britishers, they are having 13 colonies, and now the Britishers, they want to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. They want to, so if these are 13 colonies, these are Appalachian Mountains, APPA, Appalachian Mountains, right? इसका नाम आपको मिल जाएगा, Appalachian Mountains, APPA, So if these are your Appalachian Mountains, right, then here are the 13 colonies. These are the 13 colonies of Britain. Now, what do they want is they want to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. They want to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains, that is, they want to capture the area which is there with the French. In the North America. So therefore, what is the first reason of the war? The first reason of the war means that it was a rivalry for the colonies, and the Britishers, they wanted to expand the area under their control in North America by taking away the area from the British. 1754 or 56? 1754. Technically the war began in 1754, but for a period of 2 years no one fought. The actual fighting took place in 1756. So that's why it is known as 7-year war. You should use 1754 because that is technically correct. Yes. Okay. So Appalachian Mountains, these are the 13 colonies of British. The British, they want to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. They wanted to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains into North America. Now, what is the problem of the French? First of all, the French, they control the area on the west side of the Appalachian Mountains. Second issue is, what is the importance of Americas for the French? For the French, what was really important was the Central American colonies. I'll show you the Central American colonies. ये वाला दिखा देते हैं. Right. So this is your North America. This is your North America. This is here. It is your South America, and this particular area, it is your Caribbean. Okay, this is known as Central America, and in this particular area, the Spanish and the French, they are having their colonies. These colonies are very, very important for the French because they produce sugar here. So for the French, the area of North America is huge. But otherwise, the main concern of the French and the Spanish, it is your Central American colonies, because in the Central American colonies, what is grown is sugar, where on the plantations. So therefore, it is an era of 1750s where industrialization properly has not taken place, and the trade across the world, it is dominated by agrarian goods, like for example cash crops of coffee, cash crop of rubber, cash crop of sugar, and there was huge demand for these products in the rest of the world. So the French and the Spanish, they had control over the Caribbean islands, they had control over the Central American areas, the small area between South America and Central America, and they were the money minting areas for the French. So the real concern for the French and the Spanish was the Central American colonies, because they were very, very remunerative for them, they were very, very profitable for them. So therefore, then why the French are having any problem with respect to British expanding beyond the Appalachian Mountains? कर लेने दो भैया फिर उनको एक्सपेंड. आपको नॉर्थ अमेरिका से ज्यादा फायदा नहीं हो रहा है, बहुत बड़ा लैंड है, बट आपको मेजर फायदा हो रहा है सेंट्रल अमेरिका से, तो ब्रिटेन को पूरा का पूरा नॉर्थ अमेरिका कैप्चर कर लेने दो. What is your problem? The problem is that if the whole of North America comes under the domination of Britain, then sooner or later the British, they will also try to capture, they can threaten the Central American colonies of the French and the Spanish. So therefore the French, they did not want the British to dominate whole of North America, because then it will put Britain in a very strong position, and tomorrow the British, they can threaten the sugar colonies, as they called it, of French and the Spanish, right? So therefore the British, they wanted to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains in North America. So what I've written the British wanted to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains in North America. That is, they wanted to capture whole of North America. Second, French and the Spanish, France and Spain, they did not want domination of North America by British, as it would put their highly profitable Central American colonies at risk. स्टार बना के यहां लिख सकते हैं, वहां पे क्या उगाया जाता था? सो देवर शुगर, टोबैको, कॉफी, etc. Right? So the Central American colonies, they were sugar, tobacco, coffee, etc. It was produced and it was exported to the rest of the world, and through which the French and the Spanish, they earned profits. Right? So therefore, sugar, tobacco, coffee, etc., which was produced in the Central America, it was exported to the rest of the world, and that's why they were highly profitable. Right? So therefore, so therefore this becomes the primary reason. The third aspect which comes into picture is impact को थोड़ा सा अब इधर करेंगे, because हमारी reasons continue करेंगे. So we'll take a look at that later on. The third reason, if we continue with this, the reasons they are continued. The third reason is what you call industrial revolution had begun in Britain in 1750, and because of this industrial revolution, the British, they were producing products with the help of machines, and therefore they were now dominating the world trade, and they were challenging the French. So because of industrial revolution, the British trade was growing, the British maritime profits were growing, and therefore France was concerned that Britain is becoming economically powerful because of certain changes which have begun in Britain, especially in the textile sector, which have begun in 1750, and therefore if I allow the British to become dominant in North America, to become dominant in India, to become dominant in West Africa, then in the game of power at the world level, the Britain will defeat France. Industrial revolution in Britain had begun in 1750, plus British maritime trade profits were rising, therefore French felt threatened and did not want increase in British power. Right? How the British power will increase? If they are able to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains, if they are able to capture the whole of North America. Right? So therefore, this is how your things are progressing. Apart from this, right, fourth point is the British sea power was also rising. And what do you mean by sea power? By sea power, you mean navy. Right? So therefore, they felt threatened. So these are the reasons because of which when the British, they wanted to expand, the French, they resisted. Right? And the conflicts were there in India also, in West Africa also. For example, there was a small issue with respect to your there's raw material called gum. ठीक है, उतना important नहीं है बाकी वाला. अब mainly तो North America पे focus कर रहा हूँ, North America और Central America, because that is linked with our switch off the light. Where are you writing? कौन सा light? ये वाला light तो बंद हो नहीं सकता है ना? हाँ जी, अच्छा नहीं नहीं, यहाँ पे कौन सी लग रही है? ये वाली। अच्छा हाँ जी, अच्छा क्या लिखा हुआ है? रेवोल्यूशन इन ब्रिटेन हैड बिगन। ठीक है, okay, now it is fine. Okay. So nothing is written there. I have tried to put it. So industrial revolution in Britain had begun in 1750. British maritime trade profits were rising. So these became the reasons for the war. So this much you note down. After that we will go on to the results of the war and the impact it had. आप सबसे पहले यहाँ लेफ्ट वाल पे फोकस कर दीजिए. इतने पे फोकस कर दीजिए. Please note it down. I'll give you a couple of minutes for this. इट वॉज नोन एज द एपेलेचियन माउंटेन्स. आप एक काम करिए, ये दो पार्ट्स को कवर कर दीजिए. यहां से राइट दोनों दिख जाएंगे. यहां से राइट में कवर करिए थोड़ा सा और, बस ठीक है, सब दिख जाएगा. प्लीज राइट डाउन फास्ट. Kushal, I'll answer that query, but please ask the batch coordinators, right? So they will forward the relevant query. Where were the sugar coffee they were exported? They were exported to Europe. They were exported to North America. Okay. Okay. So then you can write down in India also the British and the French East India companies in India also the British and the French East India companies fought among themselves for hegemony over trade with India. In India also the British and the French companies fought among themselves for hegemony over trade with India. For hegemony over trade with India, which was highly profitable. Fought for hegemony over trade with India, in brackets, which was highly profitable. In West Africa's Senegal, Senegal, in West Africa's Senegal, the dispute was over control of resources. In West Africa's Senegal, the dispute was over control of resources, especially gum, G-U-M, especially gum, G-U-M. In Europe, the allies of Britain and France, in Europe, the allies of Britain and France fought against each other. In Europe, the allies of Britain and France fought among each other due to territorial disputes created by expansion by Prussia. The territorial disputes created by expansion by Prussia. Expansion by Prussia. territorial disputes created by expansion by Prussia. Now these are the continuation of the reasons. So we have discussed the reasons, we have written the reasons in North America. Now we are writing the reasons regarding India, West Africa and Europe. The territorial disputes created by expansion by Prussia. Territorial disputes created by expansion by Prussia. Now let us come to these are the reasons which are, so with respect to North America, we have looked upon the reasons by writing them down. I've dictated you the small reasons of the other less important areas, right? Now let us come to the result. The result was that the British and its allies, they were able to win the war, right? And once they are able to win the war, so obviously, certain things will take place. So as part of the result, for example, if you look at North America, so what is basically happening is that after this war, a treaty is signed. Whenever a war ends, after that, a peace treaty is signed, right? And in that peace treaty, some negotiations takes place and both the sides, they come to an amicable position, they come to a middle ground. So the treaty which was signed was Treaty of Paris, 1763, right? So the result is that the British, it won, right? They won the war. We are not studying the military history. We are not studying the military history. That's why we are not getting into the details of individual small battles which would have taken place, right? But overall thing is that the Britishers, they were able to dominate the war, right? So the Treaty of Paris, it was signed between the French, the British, the Spanish, etc. And as part of this treaty, what are the clauses of this particular treaty? Now, as part of, look, what is the concern of the French? What is the main concern of the French and the Spanish? The main concern of the French and the Spanish are the money minting islands of the Central America. So therefore what happens is the French will say that, okay, you have won the war, but our core interest are the colonies of Central America. So therefore, if a treaty has to buy peace, then it has to respect the core interest of even the losing party. A peace treaty cannot be such where you are saying that I will take everything and you will get nothing, because that will not bring peace in the long term, right? So therefore, the whole motto of the peace treaty is that even the losing party's core interest, they are respected. Only then the losing party will promise that, okay, I will not be waging a war again. If a peace treaty is not such a peace treaty, then it will result in a war again and again. For example, when we look at the World War I, so the peace treaties which were signed after the World War I, they did not take care of the core concern, the core respect, the core dignity of Germany, and as a result, within a period of 20 years, we saw another world war, that is the World War II. So for that reason, the core interests of the French and the Spanish, they will be respected. And as part of this, what do we see? The French and the Spanish, they were allowed to retain their Caribbean islands. Since this was their core concern, so they were allowed to retain them. These areas, they were captured by the British evacuated. But what happened in the North America? Obviously the victorious power is Britain, and Britain, it will be getting something out of this. So their major concern for fighting this particular war in the North America was the whole of North America. So therefore they are able to get control of the whole of North America. That is, the British, they came to dominate the North America. They got control over the North America. They captured the French areas, right? And therefore, they defeated the French, they defeated the Spanish. The second aspect that we see is within this, the third aspect that we see is, तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर इसी का हम सब पार्ट बोले, So here we see that French, they lost their territory in North America. The Spanish, they lost Florida. Spanish, they lost Florida. So French also lost their territory, the Spanish also lost their territory, right? So therefore this is the major aspect of it. And इसको further elaborate करें अगर, so we can say the British, they got Canada. Canada, it is earlier with the French. Now the Britishers, they are able to capture it, right? So this is how your things are taken. So largely this is the thing, right? So the whole of North America, it comes under the control of the British. The Spanish, they lost Florida. The French, they lost territory in North America. British, they got Canada. Okay, so this kind of thing, the whole of North America, it is dominated. This is what is happening with respect to North America. Now, third component, India. Now, India is very important. Why? Because the 7-year war took the form of, what did it include? It is from 1754 to 63. So therefore, the 7-year war, it took the form of, in India, first of all, you see that in the Battle of Plassey also, there was certain conflict between the British and the French, that is the British East India Company versus the French East India Company. The French possessions of Chandarnagar, etc., they were attacked. The second aspect, and the major aspect, is the Battle of Wandiwash. So in India, the 7-year war took the form of Battle of Wandiwash. Battle of Wandiwash, which took place in 1760. And this Battle of Wandiwash, it is taking place in southern part of India. And as a result of this Battle of Wandiwash, the French, they are decimated, they are defeated, and now the French, they are restricted only to Pondicherry. That means after this 7-year war, the French stopped being a threat to the Britishers in India. Right? They were routed out of South India, they were routed out of Carnatic, they were routed out of northern Sirkars, etc. Right? So therefore, this is what is. Let us take a look at the map. So here what is written? British acquisitions under Robert Clive and Warren Hastings. So these are the areas, the pink areas. Right? So northern Sirkar mein, your French, they were present, and from northern Sirkar, etc., the French, they were removed. Okay. So in India, they were restricted to this thing, and here also the Britishers, they are dominating. So in a crux, what we can mention, that is more a part of your modern Indian history. So here in a crux, what we can mention is that the right? The British ended the French threat in India, and France was now restricted only to Pondicherry. So therefore, this laid the ground for the British developing the Indian Empire, right? So therefore, this laid the foundation of British Empire in India. Or instead of saying laid the foundation, so therefore, the 7-year war, it helped British build the Indian Empire. Right? So therefore, this is the result. And what is the overall scheme of things? So this is point number 3. Overall, what do we see? Overall, we see is that in the North America, one continent, the French, they are decimated, the British, they are the superior ones. The rivalry at the world power level was between the British and the French. India, which is one of the most important possessions, there what is happening? The British and the French, they were fighting among each other during the Carnatic Wars, etc., etc. Now the net result is after 1760, ये सब तमाशा खत्म होता है. The British, they stopped fearing. There is no threat of the French in India for the Britishers. So therefore now the whole of India, the trade with the whole of India, it is available for the British to be dominated by the British. Plus now the Britishers, they do not have any European rivals, only domestic Indian rivals they are left, right, and they will be dealt on sooner or later. And therefore this is how we see that the 7-year war, it helped the British build their Indian empire, right, and India was the Sone ke Chidiya, India was the most important British possession, right. So India was Sunny Leon for British. ये दुनिया पित्तल थी, बेबी डॉल में सोने थी, ठीक है. So India was सोने की चिड़िया, and therefore the 7-year war, it has a lot of relevance with respect to bringing the British on the center stage of the world, because they were able to now have a clear path for domination of India, right. So therefore point number 4 that we see is that the balance of power at the world level, it is shifting in favor of the British. What do you mean by balance of power? Balance of power means, okay, 3-4 powers, they are powerful and there is a balance between them. But now the balance of power, it tilted in favor of the British. Balance of power tilted decisively in favor of the world, that is the British. They became the top power. They are now dominating North America, they are now dominating India, right, and any which way industrial revolution, it has already begun in 1750. Balance of power tilted or shifted decisively in favor of the British. That is, Britain became top power. They now dominated North America, India, plus industrial revolution, IR in industrial revolution. Industrial revolution began in 1750 or 1750s cannot 1750. Therefore, they now began to dominate the world economy as well. So therefore, politically they are becoming superior. Militarily they are becoming superior, navy wise they are becoming superior, economy wise they are becoming superior, and that is why we see that the 7-year war was one of the, at the cusp of the middle of 18th century, we see that Britain is rising as a top power. So therefore write this much down, and this topic of 7-year war, it is complete. आप इसको पूरा फ्रेम में ले लीजिए जितना बोर्ड में लिखा हुआ है. थोड़ा सा कैमरे को लेफ्ट कर दीजिए, उस साइड कर दीजिए. Please write this down. And also it is 1.5 hours roughly, so let us go on a break of 12 minutes, and after 12 minutes we'll take a look at the American Revolution. Your observation is pretty right, Manu. Exactly right. Welcome back, students. So Mohit has asked a question, and that also on a chat. The question goes on like this: can anyone explain the strategy for time management on a chat? The best answer will be, I do smart work rather than hard work. Chat पे बातें नहीं आती हैं. Time management, you come to know, when you work hard, when you waste time, after that you come to know about time management. ठीक है, there is no shortcut to time management. Focus on the world history class. ठीक है, बतियाना बंद करो आपस में. ठीक है, अब नेक्स्ट टॉपिक आ जाता है हमारा अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन. And American Revolution took place from 1765 to 1783. Okay, there is a question. Sandeep is asking, in 1750 Industrial Revolution took place in Britain. Yes. Therefore, raw material were very valuable in that period. Yes. But according to the Treaty of Paris, Britain gave free access of the Caribbean island to France. Yes. Why they did not take control over these Caribbean islands? That would be very helpful in providing the raw material. What kind of raw material? The British factories, do they require sugar? Yes, they do require sugar. But the point is, what kind of major raw materials they require? As we will look at the Industrial Revolution, we will see that the Industrial Revolution, it began. First of all, it did not happen immediately. It happened over a period of 100 years. So it was not a one-year event, right? So we'll come to that confusion. A question can come in the UPSC, or a question can be asked that Industrial Revolution was not a revolution. Why? Because revolutions, what is the meaning of revolution? Revolution means a huge amount of change happening in a very small amount of time. Whereas the Industrial Revolution in England, it spanned over 100 years. That means the huge amount of changes that did take place, but they did not happen in a very short amount of time. They happened across 100 years. That is the first point. The second point comes is the Industrial Revolution, it began in the textile sector. So therefore, the raw material which the Britishers, they required in 1750s, 1760s, 70s, 80s, it was raw cotton. And they got raw cotton by eliminating the French from India, right? So therefore, cotton, it is a very important raw material for the textile sector. Textile sector was the most important and the booming sector. The second very important sector of the Industrial Revolution was the iron and steel sector. Right? So therefore, what kind of raw material it is required? The raw material required is the iron ore. Right? So therefore, that is the case. Third aspect is, when you are suing for peace, when you are trying to have a peace, you have to take care of the core concern. The French will say that, give us the Caribbean islands at least, otherwise we will not see peace, even for a year. Right? So therefore, you have to take care of the core concerns. And any which way, what is the aim? What is the declared aim? Why has the war begun? The war has begun in North America because the Britishers, in North America and Central America, because the British, they want North America. So Britishers, they are able to have their North America. The French, they are able to have their Central America. The British are able to have the whole of India, at least the trade over India, if not the territory of India. The Britishers are able to eliminate any European competition from India. So what more do the British want? Right? So wars are very, very expensive. You cannot continue fighting war endlessly. So therefore, peace, it is very, very important. Now let us come to the American Revolution. And in this American Revolution, what happened? One point we should understand very clearly. And this point we get confused. The students of the earlier batches, they usually get very, very confused. हमें ये नहीं पता चलता है कौन था कहाँ पे, मतलब कौन कहाँ रह रहा था. First of all, if you look at the 13 colonies, who was living in the 13 colonies? In the 13 colonies, the European settlers, especially the people from Britain, they were living. What kind of people they were? They were those kind of people who were from the lower middle classes or from the middle classes of Britain, who could not have held on to land. जिनके पास जमीन नहीं थी ब्रिटेन में, वो लोग जमीन के लिए, because it is an era of agrarian economy, 1750s, 1600s, those are the era of agrarian economy. So therefore, what is the center of economy? Center of economy is agriculture, and agriculture, it is based on land. So therefore, those people who did not own land in Britain, right, who could not aspire to become a huge or a big farmer in Britain. So therefore, those people, they migrated from Britain. Some others also migrated from Europe, and they settled in these 13 colonies where they were doing farming. Right? So therefore, it was the lure for agriculture that they came there. Right? Much of the land in these 13 colonies was also owned by the rich people of Britain, and they had rented out this land to these European settlers to do farming. So therefore, let us be pretty clear who was living in the 13 colonies. 13 colonies, therefore, we are saying Here, European settlers have settled. What do you mean by settlers? That is people of Europe. They have migrated from Europe and they are coming to North America. That is, people have migrated in Europe, right? So therefore, these are the people of 13 colonies. These are the majority of the population. They formed majority of the population. Obviously, when they came here and they settled here, after that what happened? So Africa, one area is there, Senegal, it was rich in gum. So therefore, British and France, they fought among each other because they wanted to have that particular resource. So that's how your Africa got settled. But ask the question to the batch coordinator. Anyways, here European settlers had settled. That means people had migrated from Europe and they had started living in these 13 colonies. Obviously, earlier, some people would be living in these 13 colonies. Who are these people? The original people. The original people of this North America, they are known as Aboriginal Indians or they are known as American Indians. So therefore, next aspect is this thing. So American Indians. Now who are these American Indians? American Indians, they are the people, the original inhabitants. The original inhabitants of North America, they are known as American Indians, right? Why they are known as Indians? In your 1500s, when North America it was discovered, at this, or Central America it was discovered, at that point of time, these explorers, they were searching for India. By mistake, Columbus, he landed in Central America and he thought he has found India. So therefore, he called the people who were there as Indians, right? But for our purpose, simply आप इतना ही याद रखो that American Indians, who are the American Indians? American Indians are the original inhabitants of North America, जिनको Native Americans भी बोला जा सकता है. Red Indians भी बोला जा सकता है. Right? So इनको ये सब नाम दिए जाते हैं. So these are the American Indians. Now these American Indians, ये इनका area, these 13 colonies, their lands have been taken away, right? And who has taken away their land? The European settlers of these 13 British colonies. Right now, around the time period of this 7-year war, therefore the American Indians, they are majorly residing where? They are residing in the French, they resided in the French control area on the west of Appalachian Mountains. They resided in an area west of Appalachian Mountains. In the 7-year war, they had supported the French. Why they had supported the French? Because the French, they were not interested in taking away their land. The French were not settling. The French, they were not bringing French settlers into the French controlled area. So therefore, जो French थे, वो कम से कम इनको इनकी जमीन से हटा नहीं रहे थे. पर जो ये वाले लोग थे, 13 कॉलोनीज वाले लोग थे, ये एक्सपैंड इसलिए करना चाहते थे ब्रिटिशर्स की मदद से, ताकि ये और जमीन अपने कब्जे में लेके आ सके और ताकि ये लोग बड़े बड़े लैंड ओनर्स बन सके. रिपीटिंग द सेम थिंग इन इंग्लिश, द अमेरिकन इंडियंस, दे फॉट on the side of the French in the 7-year war. Why? Because although the French, they controlled the area to the west of the Appalachian Mountains, but the French, they were not interested in settling in those areas. The French, therefore, were not interested in taking away the land of the American Indians and settling there, farming there, etc., etc. Therefore, the American Indians, they felt that, okay, between the Britishers and between the French are better because we will be able to continue to live on our land under the French. Whereas, if the Britishers win, then the people of these 13 colonies, they will expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. They will come and take away our land and we will lose our land. So therefore, in the 7-year war, the American Indians, they supported the French. Therefore, they supported the French in the 7-Year War because they feared loss of land to settlers of 13 British colonies. Right? So that's why they are supporting the French. And after the end of the 7-Year War, these people, they continued their skirmishes, they continued fighting the British. They continued against the 13 colonies. The people of the 13 colonies during the 7-Year War, they had fought on the side of Britain. They expected that after the war, we will be able to get access to more and more land beyond the Appalachian Mountains. So right now we are having land, we are doing farming on the land which is owned by the rich people of the Britain. The rich people of the Britain, they own the land in the 13 colonies. So they thought that if we are able to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains, then we will be able to become landowners. So therefore they supported the British in the 7-Year War. So they supported and fought for Britain in the 7-Year War because desired land beyond the Appalachian Mountains. Now what happens? Now the Britishers, what do? The Britishers, they want to end the war. With the French, they have entered the war, but the American Indians, they are continuously fighting against these 13 colonies, and the Britishers' wars are very, very costly, and because of the war, the British government had come under huge amount of debt. They had brought out many bonds, and people had purchased those bonds. The British government had taken loan from the people of Britain to fund the 7-Year War, right? And there were a real chance now that the British government might default on this public debt. So therefore, the Britishers, they wanted to end the cost of the war, and therefore they wanted to end the war. So therefore, to buy peace with the American Indians, the British government thought, see, what is the interest of the settlers of the 13 colonies? The interest of the settlers of the 13 colonies is that the Britishers, they expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. But what is the interest of the British government? The immediate interest of the British government is that geopolitically, we are able to control North America. The British government is not concerned whether these people are able to get this farming land beyond the Appalachian Mountains. उनके गोल जियोपॉलिटिकल हैं, और जियोपॉलिटिकल गोल उन्होंने अचीव कर लिया है. उन्होंने फ्रांस को नॉर्थ अमेरिका से हटा दिया है. They have removed the French from the North America. So therefore, right now what do they want? They want an end of war. So in 1700, after your 1754 to 63 7-Year War, these people, they bring about proclamation of 1763 in obviously 1763. Why? Because they want to end the war. So next aspect comes. So this is the reason. We are discussing the reasons. Now we come to the reasons. So if we look at the reasons, the first reason becomes the proclamation of 1763. Look at the word proclamation. The proclamation, it is introduced by the Parliament. It is brought out by the Parliament. So the British Parliament brought out a proclamation when? In 1763. What did the proclamation say? This is the first aspect we need to look. So what it was? The proclamation said that the Britishers, they will not expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. And this proclamation created what do you call an Indian Reserve. That is, they said that all of North America, it is under Britain, but in the 13 colonies, the European settlers will live, and in the Indian reserves, the American Indians will live. We will not take away the land of American Indians. and here it is your American reserve, Indian reserve. If you look at this particular map, thoda zoom in kar lijiye. Yes. So this is your North America. These are the 13 colonies. These are the Appalachian Mountains. On the left hand side of the Appalachian Mountains, they are demarcated as Indian Reserve of 1763. Therefore, they are saying that all of this area, it belongs to the British. Here in the 13 colonies, the European settlers, they will live, and here the European settlers, they will not expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains, and in this Indian Reserve of 1763, the American Indians, they will continue to live. And therefore, we have tackled the concerns of the American Indians, and as a result, now the American Indians, they can stop attacking the 13 colonies. So the 13 colonies will not expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains, plus it created an Indian reserve where American Indians will continue to reside. Right? And obviously over the whole of North America, these people, they have been able to, these people, skirmishes means small battles. Right? So therefore, the whole of North America under the British, in 13 colonies, the settlers living, and in the Indian reserves, the Indians living. And therefore, why it was brought in? The reason was that the British, they wanted to end the war. They had ended the war with the French by signing the Treaty of Paris 1763. They have ended the war with the Spanish by signing the Treaty of Paris of 1763, but they are unable to end the war with the American Indians because the American Indians, they are concerned कि हमारी जमीन जायदाद का क्या होगा. So therefore, why? Because the Britishers, they did not want to extend the war, or they wanted to end the war. They wanted to end the war with the American Indians, and therefore they brought out this proclamation of 1763, right? Plus war was costly, therefore to curtail the war expenditure. So therefore this is the reason because of which these people, they are bringing on this proclamation of 1763. Now why this is the reason of the American Revolution? The American Revolution, what it was? The American Revolution was basically a revolt by the people of 13 colonies against the British government. American Revolution was a revolt It was a revolt by the 13 colonies against the British government. So therefore, why does this particular proclamation of 1763 is a part of the reason? Because the people of the 13 colonies, they had fought in the 7-year war, they had supported the British in the 7-year war in the hope that after the British win the war, they will be able to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. Right? Beyond the Appalachian Mountains. Who lived in the area west of the Indian reserves? Yay, tribes of this thing, but concentration is more in this particular area, right? So which is very obvious. अब इंडिया में कौन होगा? Original Indians ही होंगे जब तक बाहर के लोग नहीं आएंगे, right? So the simple point here is that the 13 colonies, they had fought for the settlers of the 13 colonies, the British and the other Europeans, they had fought on the side of the British government in the 7-year war in the hope that once the Britishers, they win the war, then they will be able to get land beyond the Appalachian Mountains. But now that very same British government, it is saying that you will not expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. So therefore इनके साथ तो धोखा हो गया. They feel cheated that why we have lost so many men in the war effort. So therefore they felt cheated, and as a result this formed part of the reason. This formed part of the reason of the grievances of the people of the 13 colonies. Right? So therefore, the settlers of the 13 colonies, they felt cheated. So therefore, this is the first reason that we look at. The second reason, which is a connected reason, is the Stamp Act of 1765. Stamp Act of 1765. What was the Stamp Act of 1765? That becomes the first aspect. So the Stamp Act of 1765, it basically levied a tax. It basically levied a sales tax. As part of the Stamp Act of 1765, whenever any paper is purchased, then you have to pay an additional stamp duty or you have to pay an additional tax. It is a form of a sales tax. Like whenever you buy any product, you have to pay GST. So similarly, whenever you pay any paper, then you would have to pay an additional tax. Now paper is required for newspaper printing, paper is required for lottery printing, paper is required for playing cards printing, paper is required for printing Ludo games, paper is required for doing any business transaction, right? So therefore contracts, they are signed on the paper. So therefore whenever there is any purchase of paper, there will be a tax. So it is a sales tax. It is a form of sales tax on purchase of all forms of paper. Right? So therefore it is a way in which the British government, it is trying to raise money. From whom? From the people of the 13 colonies. So where it is obviously it is introduced in 13 colonies. It is introduced in 13 colonies. So it is a form of tax. Why it is introduced? It is introduced so as to do recovery of the expenditure done in the 7-year war. So in the 7-year war, huge amount of costs have been borne by the British government. और अब ब्रिटिश सरकार चाहती कि जो इतना खर्चा हो गया है उसकी रिकवरी तो कहीं से हो. So therefore they levied this stamp duty or the stamp tax through the Stamp Act of 1765 on the people of 13 colonies. ये तो ऐसा हो गया that I have rubbed salt on your wound. First of all, we fought for you in the hope that we will be able to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. Then you brought out the proclamation of 1763 telling us we cannot go beyond the Appalachian Mountains. Then you are putting an economic burden on us in the form of Stamp Act. And why it is being brought? Because you want to recover the expenditure which has been done on the war. To recover the expenditure done on the 7-year war, right? So that is why this particular Stamp Act it is being brought out. And as soon as this Stamp Act it is being brought out, at this point of time the revolution will begin. So we'll take a look at the revolution, how did the events unfolded. But apart from this, there was also another important reason, and this was policy of mercantilism. Or in simple words, colonialism. What was this policy of mercantilism? The policy of mercantilism, the word mercantilism, it is coming from the word merchant. क्या हुआ? अच्छा, ये दोबारा आ गया. policy of mercantilism or colonialism. Now what was this policy of mercantilism? Basically the 13 colonies, they are the colonies of Britain, and what is the purpose of colony? The purpose of colony is to serve the mother country. How do the colonies, they serve the mother country? They serve the mother country by economically supporting the mother country. Okay, by economically supporting the mother country. How did they, or what we can say is that the mother country, it exploits the colonies economically. Right? Now the word mercantilism, it is coming from the word merchant, and the word merchant, it relates to the word trade. Who is a merchant? A merchant is a person who does trade. What is it? What do you mean by trade? Trade is that you move goods from one place to another. That is, you buy goods at one place, you move the goods to another place, and then you sell them. Right? And the profit, it is yours. So that is what a merchant does. That is what a country also does. When India is exporting something, we are trying to engage in mercantilism. Right? Now specifically the policy of mercantilism of the 1700s, what did it mean? The goal of policy of mercantilism of 1700s, it meant maximizing the balance of trade. What is the balance of trade? It is the net of exports minus imports, right, in value terms. That is, a country will be gaining money, will be earning money when it is selling something, and a country will be bleeding money when it is importing something, right? So therefore earnings, they come from export, expenditure comes from the imports, and therefore to maximize the economy of the country, we need to have a positive balance of trade. We need to maximize the balance of trade. So therefore the goal is to maximize the balance of trade. That is the net of exports and imports. Okay, so therefore that is the balance of trade, right? And to achieve this particular goal, the British government, it was economically exploiting the 13 colonies. How it was economically exploiting the 13 colonies, we'll try to take a look at. Right, so अभी आप फिलहाल इतना लिखिए, and then I'll be expanding. यहाँ space थोड़ा सा कम रह गया है, so I'll be expanding it later on. या फिर आप इसको प्रोजेक्टर को बंद कर सकते हैं 2 मिनट के लिए. So right, so now let us try to take a look at the how this policy of mercantilism it worked. So the policy of mercantilism, it worked something like this. If these are your 13 colonies, so imagine these are your 13 colonies, right? These are your 13 colonies, and the rest of it, it is Britain. Now what is the British Parliament does? The British Parliament is ruling, the British government, it is ruling these 13 colonies. So the British Parliament, it can pass laws for the 13 colonies, right? So see how the British Parliament, it is misusing its legislative power over the 13 colonies. Now first of all, for example, they say that certain, they say that certain, उससे पहले आ जाते हैं इस बात पे, they say that when these are the 13 colonies, so therefore goods will be coming into this 13 colonies and goods will be exiting these 13 colonies. इसको थोड़ा सा बड़ा, just 1 second. Now certain goods will be coming into the 13 colonies. Right? Certain goods, they will be moving out of the 13 colonies. Right? And then inside of the colonies, certain factories, etc., certain industry will be running. So with respect to imports into the colonies, the British Parliament makes a law which says that when British goods, they are entering into the 13 colonies, then there will be low custom duty. Whereas when non-British goods are entering into the 13 colonies, then the custom duty will be high. Can any student tell me how does this benefits the British? Listen to the sentence again. When the British goods, they will be entering the 13 colonies, then the custom duty will be less. Whereas when the when the non-British goods will try to enter into the colony, the custom duty will be high. The import duty will be high. Can any student tell me how does this arrangement benefits the British economy? Mandeep is saying this will make British goods cheaper. Yes. Reduce others market. Yes. British exports will increase. Yes. Great. So all of you know it. So therefore they are using, what we are seeing is they are misusing their legislative power. Now look how it will hurt. They are paying less custom duties. Yes. So all of you are right. So therefore what is the thing? Here the component is that higher tariffs on non-British imports, right? So therefore it will create a market. Yes, all of you are right. Very good. So therefore it will create a market for the Britishers. But how does it hurt the 13 colonies? It hurts the 13 colonies. Imagine a scenario that the French are ready to sell a product at, let's say, 90 rupees. Whereas the British, they are selling that product, let's say, at 100 rupees. Imagine there is zero custom duty on the British product. So therefore what will be the price of that British product once it enters into the 13 colonies? The price will be 100 rupees. Yes, cheap British, all of you are right. Right? So price of that particular British product with zero custom duty will be 100 rupees outside of the borders of the 13 colonies, and once they cross into the borders of 13 colonies, the price will remain 100 rupees. Imagine the French product, the same product, or maybe even a better quality product. It is priced at 90 rupees. It is much more competitively priced. Now let's say the custom duty on this particular product is 20%. So therefore what will be the price of this particular thing? The price will, you add 18 rupees to it. So therefore 90 plus 18, it becomes 108 rupees. So if you are a person who is living in 13 colonies, you will be buying the French product or you will be buying the British product. Obviously the British product, it is cheaper. It comes at rupees 100, right? So therefore as a result what happens is that the French product will not be sold, right? But what is the net result? What if the British Parliament had not put such a condition on the tariffs? Then the people would have paid only 90 rupees, right? And not 100 rupees. Therefore 10 rupees extra are being paid by the people of 13 colonies. Why? Because the British Parliament has misused its legislative power to arbitrarily make the British goods more competitive or cheaper. So therefore the net result is the people of the 13 colonies, they end up paying more for their imports, right? And this is how the presence of the British legislative power on the 13 colonies is detrimental to the economy of the 13 colonies. Now, certain goods are to be exported out of the colonies. Now, around the time period of 1750 onwards, the Britishers, they are undergoing industrial revolution, and for the industrial revolution, the raw materials of the textile sector and the iron and steel sector are very, very important. So the British Parliament now brings out a law which says that certain raw materials like of iron industry and of the textile industry, they can be exported only to the British. They cannot be exported to the French, even if the French are ready to pay more money for it. So therefore, the 13 colonies, they again lose out on earning for their exports. Certain goods, that is raw materials important for industrialization of Britain, can be exported only to Britain. Right? So therefore, what will happen if the French are ready to pay more? Still you cannot sell them to France. So therefore, because you are a colony, therefore you are earning less. Right? Therefore, you are earning less. Why? Because you are a colony. You do not have the political power in your hands. Right? Then, these exports which are going out of the colonies, these exports, the British Parliament brings out a law which says that only British ships will be used for trading by the 13 colonies. That means if the 13 colonies, they are exporting something, then obviously ships are required, right? So therefore, only British ships will be used. Maybe the French are ready to give the ships on rent at a cheaper price. Maybe the Dutch, which were very good shipbuilders, maybe they can give the ship at a cheaper price, but no. The law says if there is any exporter in the 13 colonies, or if there is any importer in the 13 colonies, if any trade is happening by the 13 colonies, then the ships which have to be used, they have to be British ships. What it will do? It will create a demand. It will create a demand for the shipbuilding industry of Britain. They will get more orders for the ships. It will create a demand for the British steel industry, because ships, they are made by using steel. It will create a demand for the coal sector of the Britain, because coal will be required to forge the steel in form of a ship, or to convert iron ore into steel. It will create a demand for blast furnaces which convert your which harness the coal to produce steam. Net result is you are misusing the law, legislative power. You are misusing the power to legislate over 13 colonies to bring out such a law which benefits your businesses. Yes, Navigation Act of 1651. Therefore, this will create a demand for the British shipping sector. create demand for the British shipping sector, right? So this is what is happening. Apart from this, it is by law the 13 colonies, they are barred from setting up any iron or textile industry. Why? Because iron and textile industry, they were the pillars of the industrialization which was happening in Britain since 1750. So therefore, only they will set up a factory of textile sector, only they will set up a factory of the iron and steel sector. Why? So that the 13 colonies, they do not manufacture steel of their own. They do not manufacture finished cloth of their own. They have to import. And therefore, again, arbitrarily create a demand for the British factories. Why? Because you have barred them from meeting their own demand by doing their own supply. Barred from having indigenous iron and textile sector industry. So therefore, if you imagine that these are 13 colonies, then inside they cannot set up these iron and textile sector industries, right? So they are the most important for IR. These were the most important sectors. These are the most important sectors for IR. They are the most important sector for IR of Britain. Here you are not allowed to. Why? So that the British factories, they get more orders, right? So therefore, specifically we can mention to create demand for British businesses, especially iron and steel sector. Then your textile sector, shipbuilding sector, right? So therefore, this is how your policy of mercantilism operated, and this is how 1651, 1651, right? So this is how your this thing operated. Industrial revolution, yes, 1750. Yes, industrial revolution happened in 1750, but still shipping sector existed before 1750 also. No? The process got revolutionized, yes, so it handicapped the colony's economy. So this is how your colony, so it is what is mercantile capitalism, or what is mercantilism? Mercantilism is nothing but through trade you are trying to drain the money of the colony, you are trying to drain the wealth of the colony, you are preventing economic growth of the colony. So therefore, because of these reasons, so this is a policy level reason, the third reason, and these are the two other reasons because of which your American Revolution it is taking place. So now I'll give you 5 minutes, 2.5 minutes each for writing this down. आप इससे लेफ्ट वाला कर दीजिए फोकस, इस लाइन से लेफ्ट वाला, और सेकेंड हाफ में इस लाइन से राइट वाला फोकस कर दीजिए. So I'll give you 2.5 or 3 minutes for writing this down, and then I'll show you the right hand side. Please ask the questions to the batch coordinator. Otherwise, what is the utility of having batch coordinators? They are such important resources. Yes, they can be applied. Definitely, Vivek. Please forward the questions to the batch coordinator. I will answer those questions once the batch coordinator forwards them to me. This helps in organizing the class in a better way. कह रहे हैं विजिबल नहीं है, तो यहां तक पे फोकस कर दीजिए, फिर यहां से लेफ्ट पे, बस ठीक है, बस। फ्यूडलिज्म करेंगे जब फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन आएगा। The people living in 13 colonies, they are British, yes, but they are the less rich sections of the British. They are the people who have gone out of Britain. So therefore, when it comes to the giving importance, then the British own industry, it is being, that is just a colony. So therefore, it is your wish whether you want to be part of mainland Britain or you want to be in the colony. The colony will serve the needs of the mother country. Then what is American Indians' second point? American Indians' second point is resided in area west of Appalachian Mountains. Supported the French in 7-year war because feared loss of land to settlers of 13 British colonies. Plus after war they continued skirmishes against 13 colonies. Okay, Shubham, कोई डाउट है तो प्लीज फॉरवर्ड इट टू दी बैच कोऑर्डिनेटर, आई विल आंसर दैट डाउट। कोई पार्ट नहीं समझ में आया, मैं दोबारा समझाने को तैयार हूं, कोई समस्या नहीं है। और फिर वो क्लासेस अगर ज्यादा लग जाएंगी तो फिर आप ही कहोगे वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री से क्वेश्चन आता नहीं है, इतनी सारी क्लासेस क्यों लग रही हैं। तो आप डाउट पूछिए, मैं डाउट आंसर करूंगा। और बाकी अगर स्टूडेंट्स भी बताइए कि उनको समझ में आ रहा है या नहीं आ रहा है, आर दे एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड और दे आर नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड। कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, यू आस्क द क्वेश्चन, एनी पार्ट विच यू फील दैट इट नीड्स टू बी रिआइटरेटेड, प्लीज आस्क। ठीक है, सर प्लीज शिफ्ट लेफ्ट, थोड़ा सा लेफ्ट कर दीजिए, हल्का सा, मतलब यहां तक का पूरा दिख जाए ना मेरा हाथ, इधर से इधर का करना है ना, बस ठीक। Yes, obviously, Vishwanath. We need to focus on the reason, the impacts, because that is what a civil servant is required to do. बाकी डिसेंटली डिटेल में कर रहे हैं हम लोग, ऐसा नहीं है दैट वी आर स्किपिंग एनी ऑफ द इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट्स। ठीक है, और राइट कर दीजिए, अब राइट वाले पे फोकस कर दीजिए, इधर से उधर वाले पार्ट पे जूम इन करके फोकस कर दीजिए। Barred from having indigenous industries, indigenous iron and textile sector industry. Please write down after this. Again, I'll repeat just in case, since this is the first class. So, दोबारा एक बार summary types में समझा दूंगा, आप टेंशन मत लीजिए। Okay, now let me explain it to you again. Let us begin with this thing only. तो कैमरा आप हटाइएगा मत. What is the policy of mercantilism? The word mercantilism, it is coming from the word merchant. Merchant क्या करता है? Merchant is a person who trades, that is, who does import and export. Right? Now the British government was trying to maximize the earning of Britain by exploiting the economy of the colonies. Right? So what is the goal of this policy of mercantilism? Every policy has a goal. So the goal is to maximize the balance of trade, that is net of exports and imports. Whenever you export something, you are selling something. When you sell something, you earn money. Whenever you are importing something, you are buying something, and when you do that, you are giving out money. So as a country, the Britain earns money, or it earns gold when it does exports, and when it imports, the gold goes out of Britain. So therefore, Britain wants to maximize its gold, that is, Britain wants to maximize its balance of trade. If these are the 13 colonies, over these 13 colonies, the British Parliament has legislative power, meaning the British Parliament can make laws for these 13 colonies. Right? Now, what is the British Parliament law says? The British Parliament law says, for example, by law, tariffs, that means custom duty, etc., they are applied as per the law, right? Import duty, custom duty. So therefore, they are saying that higher import duty on non-British imports. As a result, what will happen? The British goods coming into the 13 colonies, they will be more competitively priced, they will be cheaper, and the people of 13 colonies, they will buy the British goods as compared to non-British goods. Why? Because artificially, the Britishers have increased the price of non-British goods by applying higher custom duty on non-British goods. As a result, what will happen? These people will buy more and more British goods. As a result, artificially, the British Parliament has created more demand for the British goods, more orders for the British factories, increase the exports of Britain. Right? So therefore, it serves the policy goal. Then, certain goods, they will be exported out by the colonies. So it is mentioned that certain goods which were raw materials important for industrialization of Britain, like raw iron, raw cotton, they can be exported only to Britain. Why? So that the British factories, they get short supply of important raw materials, right? So therefore, again, the British factories are benefiting by this. Third point is Navigation Act of 1651. Here, cargo from the colonies to be carried only in British ships. So therefore, the British shipping sector will benefit. More British ships will be required. More journeys will be there for the British ships. Right? So therefore, the British shipping sector will benefit. So overall, what we are seeing is that the British Parliament or the Britain, it is misusing its legislative power of over the colonies, because it can make laws over the colonies to benefit the British businesses, and this hurt the economy of colonies. Example kaise? For example, the colonies paid more for their imports now. Why? Because it is possible that non-British goods might be cheaper, but because arbitrarily you have increased the taxes, so therefore they are becoming expensive, and people are buying ultimately without custom duty. देखा जाए तो more expensive British goods. ऐसा scenario तो हो सकता है. Second, they lost out on maximizing earnings from exports. Why? Because certain goods, they are to be exported only to Britain. So it is possible that maybe French, Dutch, Portuguese, they might be ready to pay more for the goods from the 13 colonies. The laws were misused to create demand for British businesses, especially iron and steel sector, textile sector, shipbuilding sector. Right? So artificially demand is being created, as we have discussed through the Navigation Act and through this thing, right? Especially this particular point, when iron and textile sector industry, it cannot be opened in the 13 colonies. As a result, what will happen? Whenever any finished iron product is required, whenever any finished steel product is required, whenever any finished textile product is required, it has to be sourced from Britain. The British factories, they will get more orders. So therefore, their exports will also increase. Therefore, the policy goal of mercantilism will be served. Right? इसमें कोई doubt शुभम? Third part तुमने बोला था दोबारा समझाने के लिए. अब इधर आ जाओ. Stamp Act. Stamp Act क्या था? एक टैक्स लगा दिया लोगों पे. Why? Because people will be paying the tax. The money will go to the British Parliament or the British Exchequer. Right? So therefore, this is what it is. Proclamation of 1763. This point, I don't think there is any confusion. If there is any confusion, you can ask. Okay? So therefore, in the proclamation of 1763, what they are saying, that you will not expand, the people of 13 colonies, you will not expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains. You will not take over the lands of the American Indians. Therefore, these people, they are a little dissatisfied that we have fought in the 7-year war in the hope that we will be able to get the land beyond the Appalachian Mountains. We have lost men, we have fought for you, but what do we get? We get Stamp Act. And overall what we have been getting? Mercantilism. So therefore हमें आपके अंडर रह के कुछ मिल नहीं रहा है. ठीक है? So because they have only 13 colonies, so they can apply laws only on these 13 colonies. Right? When we are talking about North America, जो colonies है उन्हीं पे तो law लगाएंगे और कहाँ पे लगाएंगे. ठीक है, तो ये है. Right. So now what happens? Once your Stamp Act of 1765 it is brought out, suddenly there are revolts by the people on the streets of the 13 colonies. The tax inspectors who are coming to collect the tax, they are being attacked. Right? They are being attacked. Also the leaders of the 13 colonies, they come together and they meet in a congress. What is the meaning of a congress? Congress means a congregation. Congress means, what is the meaning of the word Congress? What is the meaning of the word assembly? Basically, the 13 colonies, I'm again requesting, please send the doubts to the batch coordinators. Right? However, the 13 colonies are being established. So, Navy of Britain, it will travel from Britain, cross Kara Atlantic, landed on the shores of North America, had guns, fought against the American Indians and captured the land and declared that this is our colony. Right? So therefore, let us look at the events. Let us look at the events of the American Revolution. So in 1765, when this Stamp Act is being brought out, so at this point of time, the people are very, very enraged. The tax inspectors which come to collect this stamp tax, they are attacked by the people on the streets of the 13 colonies, right? The politicians or the leaders of the 13 colonies, they also come together, and they meet in a Congress which is known as Stamp Act Congress. The word Congress, the word assembly, you say na state assembly, whereas US says US Congress. What is the meaning? Nothing, but people are coming together and meeting. It is an assembly of the and this is how these bodies like legislative bodies, etc., they get the name assembly, Congress, just that their leaders are meeting. So therefore, leaders of 9 colonies, not all, not important, but simply we can say that the leaders of the colonies, they met what is known as in Stamp Act Congress of 1765. Right? So what is happening is, first your Stamp Act Congress of 1765. Right? Stamp Act Congress of 1765, what happens is that these leaders, they come together and they pass a petition. Petition means a request. They send a request to Britain, and the request is in the form of it is titled Declaration of Rights and Grievances. Declaration of Rights and Grievances. Now, what are they basically saying here? इसके अंदर क्या है, क्या लिखा है? First of all, they say that see, अभी ना चीजें माइल्ड चल रही हैं. So first of all, they say that see, we are loyal to the crown. So please do not think that we are rebelling or anything, but हमारे कुछ grievances हैं. ठीक है? So first point that they say is that we are loyal to the crown. However, they say that, see, you have passed a law, the law has been passed by the British Parliament. But the point is that we are not represented in the British Parliament. Why? Because we do not have a right to vote. Why we do not have a right to vote? Because we do not own land in the 13 colonies. The land is owned in the 13 colonies by the rich aristocrats of Britain who are living in Britain. हम तो यहाँ पे रेंट पे हैं, हमने ये लैंड रेंट पे ले रखा है और हम खेती बाड़ी कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो देयरफॉर द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट वी आर नॉट रिप्रेजेंटेड इन द ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट. वी डू नॉट हैव द राइट टू वोट, एंड देयरफॉर द मेंबर्स ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट ऑफ ब्रिटेन, दे डू नॉट रिप्रेजेंट अस बिकॉज वी हैव नॉट इलेक्टेड देम. हमसे तो वोट, हमारे पास राइट टू वोट ही नहीं है. सो देयरफॉर व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज अ टैक्स हैज बीन लिवाइड while we are not represented in the British Parliament. And therefore they say, they gave the slogan or they gave the principle of no taxation without representation. So the famous slogan, no taxation without representation, or the famous principle of polity that there cannot be any taxation without representation, it means that we are not represented in the British Parliament because we are not the voters. Had we elected those parliamentarians, and then those parliamentarians as our representatives would have brought out a tax, then it would have been democratically fine. But we are not represented there and you have applied a tax on us, so this is wrong. So they say that with all due respect, the British Parliament does not have a right to apply taxes on the 13 colonies because no taxation without representation. We are loyal to the crown, however, the British Parliament does not have right to apply taxes on us because of principle of no taxation without representation, as people of colonies did not have voting rights because they were not land owning subjects of British Empire. Therefore, British Parliament is not representative of colonies, and therefore it is undemocratic if the British Parliament applies taxes on us. It is not in line with democracy. This is the Declaration of Rights and Grievances. What is its main feature? Its main feature is anti-WR, no taxation without representation. Right? So therefore it is a polity-wise development, it is a political development, it is a development on the side of democracy. You are saying no taxation without representation. Only democratically elected representatives can decide if a tax is to be brought in. Right? So therefore, since we have not elected the parliamentarians do not have a right to apply tax on us. Right? So therefore, this becomes the Stamp Act Congress of 1765, and this is how your things are progressing. Right? After this Stamp Act Congress, what happens is, so simultaneously boycott of British goods happens. The people are smart, they recognize that where to pinch the British where it will hurt the most. So therefore, let us reduce the profits of the British businesses by boycotting the British goods. We will not buy the British goods. As a result, the British exports into the 13 colonies, they will decrease, and therefore the profits of the British businesses will decrease. So therefore, they began a program of boycott of British goods. This will hurt the British exports. Simultaneously, boycott of British goods by people of colonies, this hurt the British exports. Right? This is what is happening. Plus, there was violence against tax collectors. Right? So therefore, this is how your things are progressing. At this point of time, the Britishers, they get worried कि भैया हमारी तो इकोनॉमी वीक है. इकोनॉमी वीक है वाई? बिकॉज वी हैव फॉट द 7 ईयर वॉर, और इसीलिए तो हमने ये टैक्स लगाया था, स्टैम्प एक्ट. अब हमारे एक्सपोर्ट्स ही डाउन हो जाएंगे तो हमारी तो इनकम और गिर जाएगी. तो उनका भैया शांत, थामा भाई थामा, ठीक है. लेट अस नाउ द ब्रिटिश दे रिपील्ड द स्टैम्प एक्ट in 1766. उनका भी है, ठीक है, बुरा मत मानो, होली है, मीनिंग अब हमारे एक्सपोर्ट्स हर्ट हो रहे हैं, राइट, और ठीक है, हम स्टैम्प एक्ट रिपील कर रहे हैं. व्हाई? बिकॉज आवर इकोनॉमी इज गेटिंग हर्ट. व्हाई डू दे रिपील इट? बिकॉज देयर because of concern for economic loss, because of boycott. Which boycott? This boycott. Boycott of British goods. अब ये तो ऐसा हुआ जैसे शेर के मुंह खून लग गया. The tiger tasted the blood. So at this point of time, the people they said, no, no, no. हमने स्लोगन दिया था no taxation without representation. Our slogan was not no stamp act without representation. क्या ब्रिटेन इधर आओ, समझ में नहीं आता है क्या? यूपीएससी तैयार नहीं की हो है? स्लोगन क्या था बे? स्लोगन था नो टैक्सेशन विदाउट रिप्रेजेंटेशन. तुम समझ लिए नो स्टैम्प एक्ट विदाउट रिप्रेजेंटेशन. व्हाट अबाउट अदर टैक्सेस विच यू हैव लिवाइड ऑन अस? वी सेड नो टैक्सेशन विदाउट रिप्रेजेंटेशन, और तुम बस स्टैम्प एक्ट हटा के खुश हो रहे हो. ना 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 ना. दे कॉन्टिन्यूड देयर बॉयकॉट. The colonies continued boycott and demanded repeal of all taxes. As a result, what happened? The British exports to the colonies decreased by half. They got halved, right? After this, now it is 8 p.m., right? So we will stop the class. Our classes, they will start sharp at time, and I'll try to end them also in time. Although no promises, although आज आपने मेरा थोड़ा सा समय लगाया, वो कैमरा वैमरा हम भी फिट नहीं कर पाए थोड़ी ठीक से, तो हमारी भी गलती है. Anyways, so ये आप नोट डाउन कर लेना. स्कीम ये चल रही है. स्टैम्प एक्ट आया, उसके बाद स्टैम्प एक्ट कांग्रेस आई. साहब उनका यू हैव नो टैक्स, द ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट डज नॉट हैव द राइट टू अप्लाई टैक्स. सो सारा गेम क्या चल रहा है? गेम चल रहा है नो टैक्सेशन विदाउट रिप्रेजेंटेशन, right? And these things are taking place. Okay, so you can note this down. In the next session we will complete the American Revolution, and after that we will progress on to the French Revolution. Okay, so please note this down, and thank you so much. It was great interacting with you. Just one small request, please try to bring a little bit of discipline. The questions, they need to be asked to the batch coordinator. ठीक है, तो मुझे आंसर करने में कोई समस्या नहीं है, बट ये एक सिस्टम है, उससे चीजें ऑर्गेनाइज रहती हैं. जब आप कोई सवाल चैट पे पूछ रहे थे तो बहुत सारे हो सकता है लोगों का वो सवाल ना हो सकता है बैच कोऑर्डिनेटर उस सवाल को आपको आंसर कर दे, आप ठीक हो जाए आपके लिए सब कुछ. ठीक है, सो डू लेट मी नो पहली क्लास कैसी रही, राइट? एंड कोई आपके डाउट्स हो तो आई एम ऑलवेज ओपन टू डाउट्स. आप अपने डाउट्स भेजिए बैच कोऑर्डिनेटर को, नेक्स्ट क्लास में एड्रेस कर देंगे. कहीं पे भी कोई प्रॉब्लम है, डू नॉट फील शाय, सेंड योर डाउट्स टू बैच कोऑर्डिनेटर. अगर वो मुझे फॉरवर्ड करते हैं मैं उनको रिजॉल्व करूंगा, राइट? अब आप इसको लिख सकते हैं, ठीक है? ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स एक बार दिखा दिया जाएगा, आप बाद में कर सकते हैं इसको. ठीक है, सो इतना ही है जो है. थैंक यू सो मच, गॉड ब्लेस यू. P stands for parliament. P stands for parliament. altruismheals@gmail.com. ALTRUISMHEALS. The last line of 4 is colonies continued boycott and demanded repeal of all taxes in brackets because anti-WR, and then star mark, British exports to colonies got halved. आधे हो गए. Altruism thing is my email, So Aditya, if you have any, in general, if you have doubts, etc., or later on after the batch, if you need to have something, right? So जॉन ग्रीन के अच्छे हैं क्रैश कोर्स, 12-12 मिनट की वीडियो होती है, देख सकते हो. altruismheals@gmail.com, it is my email. बट उसमें जॉन ग्रीन वाले में बहुत सारी ऐसी छोटी छोटी बैटल वाली डिटेल्स होती हैं जो यूपीएससी के लिए उतना ठीक नहीं है.